understand what panic smells like from legislators. And I don't know that Republicans are quite there yet, but I was there during government shutdowns, and I know when they start to fray, you're starting to see it, Elise Stefanik doing what I would have done in my district, which is, all right, you have your little shutdown if you want your little shutdown, but you're going to fund the troops. Like she wants to get that bill on the floor. And so now you got the Speaker of the House saying, no, we don't want to fund the troops. No, that's a gimmick to fund the troops. No, like that's a lose-lose situation for Mike Johnson. You get other people across the country, and, you know, people would come up to me when we had government shutdown going, wait, let me get this straight. So you all have shut down the government, and you're getting paid, but I work at the Navy base and I'm not getting paid. How does that work?
That just doesn't.
How does that work, Congressman? How does that work, Congresswoman? They're starting to hear all that. And I would just say, just again, Donald Trump usually knows how to maintain the high ground politically as far as the, I'm not saying he takes the high ground. He knows where the high ground is politically, and he's usually in a pretty good place. Here, you have a speaker, that speaker right there, shut down Congress to avoid a vote on the Epstein files. Put him up for a second. That speaker, and these are just not political winners, he shut down Congress to stop a vote on the Epstein files. He then was part of a shutdown of government so people wouldn't get their health care back. Like, Democrats are literally trying to get millions of people in red state America trying to get their health care back in Louisiana. Like, you can say what you want about Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, Mike Johnson, is trying to help your constituents. You're not helping your constituents because Louisiana is going to take a disproportionate hit. That guy right there, a Yankees fan, for God's sake. A Yankees fan is trying to help constituents in Louisiana more than a representative and a speaker from Louisiana.
It's remarkable how the dynamics of this have changed in the last week or so, where early on they thought the Democrats would cave. We had 3 senators that first night looked like they were going to, they did say they voted for the bill. I was told a number of people on the Hill saying this is going to last a couple of days. Instead, Democrats are staying strong. They're saying the polls are with them, and it's Republicans, Joe, for all the reasons you just outlined. People are realizing, wait a minute, this government shutdown is actually starting to affect my life. With health care, we're starting to see it at airports, and we are now starting to see from Republicans dissent. And we had a couple of members last night say, we need to open the House. Call the House back, Speaker Johnson. We need to be doing our jobs.
And people know he has the power to do so. He went on C-SPAN, Speaker Johnson, and took calls. And this mother of 2 medically fragile children and the wife of a military vet just laid it on him, saying, you know, my members of my family could die. This is the situation we are in, and you have the power to change it. He said, I'm sorry for your situation. It's all the Democrats' fault, and then continued with what appeared to be untruths about this being all the Democrats' fault.
Well, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work because Republicans own the House, Republicans own the Senate, Republicans own the White House, Republicans control the Supreme Court. I wouldn't have said that a couple months ago.
She knew that.
But right now, the Supreme Court is a wholly owned subsidiary of the GOP because they're just not making any rulings that will bring any order to the cities. That's on the Supreme Court. That really is. It's what they've been doing last 3 to 6 months is just unbelievably negligent. And so Republicans own Washington, D.C. And so to say, oh, it's Chuck Schumer, it's the minority leader's fault who has no power. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. I want to bring in right now a guy who was actually there. I don't know if you were there during the shutdown, but you were working the Hill when I was on the Hill
as well.
John Bresnahan. Hey, John, you always see with these shutdowns. I mean, we could certainly see. We could figure out when things were going our way, and you could just smell it, and you could smell the fear in the air when Bill Clinton got our number and figured out how he was going to win that shutdown, and we knew we were doomed. And even Gingrich basically knew we were doomed. Talk about the dynamics on the Hill now, where you have Stefanik saying, well, let's at least fund the military, which is, again, something I would have done in my district if I were her. You have these other members saying we need to get back into town. They won't swear in a member that got elected, and he ran everybody out of town in the first place because of the Epstein files. This is not good. And I'm not saying this to a bunch of liberals. I'm just saying what Republicans are thinking and what they're hearing, John, back in their districts. What are you hearing on the Hill?
Yeah, the things have definitely shifted. The debate has shifted. Ken Calvert, who's the Defense Appropriations Chairman, the guy who funds the Pentagon, he wants them to come back. Remember, the House has been gone since September 19th. Honestly, my colleague Jake Sherman and I have been writing about this, kind of baffled by Johnson's strategy here of not keeping the House in. But there was other members of the House Republican leadership saying, look, we don't want those guys here because it'll be a problem for us. You know how members are when they're all together and they egg on each other, and it's a way for the leadership to control them if they're not here. But I do think it's getting to the point where members are openly complaining of, like Stephanie Bice from Oklahoma, a good conservative member, somebody who's in the leadership or has the leadership's ear, she's saying we got to come back, so you're starting to see that the Senate's not going anywhere. And I agree with you, Joe. I just think it's surprising to me Trump hasn't tried to shift this now. Because this is on Trump. I know he's got a lot on his plate with Gaza and Israel. It's a huge deal. Right. But think about this. The president of the United States may leave the country while the government's shut down. And I can't think of a president who would do that. I'm not criticizing Trump for it because it is a huge deal.
It's massive.
But he's talking about leaving the country. And that's it. Trump is going to have to be the one that breaks the stalemate here. He's going to have to find a way to do this.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. I mean, obviously,
going to have to give on health care.
The peace plan in the Middle East is massive. It's an extraordinary, historic breakthrough, but he had enough time to send his hand-picked U.S. attorney to indict Letitia James, or to have a grand jury do that. So he's juggling quite a few things right now. Gene Robinson, I lean on my personal experience because I've been through this. If you're in a district like I was in, and I would guess Elise Stefanik and other Republicans are, Ken Calvert, who I served with, other people that have bases in their district. I had 5-6 military bases in my district, which meant I had tons of military retirees living in that district. I had tons of vets living in that district. And when there's a government shutdown, man, the VA ain't working. It's not working the way it is. Yeah. The military bases aren't working. The people who work on the planes, who work on the ships, they're not going to work. They're sitting home. They're not getting paid. Like the idea that Mike Johnson thinks he can sit in C-SPAN studios and just say, oh, this is a problem of the party who has absolutely no power. Yeah. Like, Americans aren't that stupid. And again, no. I'm not saying this for a left-wing audience, for a progressive audience. I'm saying this as a former Republican who helped shut down the government to balance the budget. And I'm telling you, man, it is, after a while, it's unsustainable, especially if you have a speaker, and this is a dynamic, who shut down Congress because of the Epstein files, and then shut down the government because he didn't want Americans in his state to get their health care back.
Yeah, those things together do not a tenable position make. They really don't. And if you are the party that controls Washington and there's a government shutdown, you're going to get the blame. You're not going to be able to just point to the Democrats. And, the key moment in this was really very early on when Democrats managed to make the issue not just, shutting down the government, but also health care, right? And there's been this enormous focus on health care and what's going to, all these people, including in Louisiana and many red districts and red states that are going to be thrown off Medicaid. There's a focus on these Obamacare premiums that are set to double. And, Marjorie Taylor Greene has pointed to that. She's another person who I guess, Mike Johnson doesn't want to have to deal with here in Washington. But he can't just keep the House shut down indefinitely. He's going to have to open it back up. And the longer he waits, I think the more restive Republicans are going to be, because they know they are now getting killed on this. And they're going to have to, just saying, we're not going to talk about any of this other stuff, and it is not working. That's not their job. They have a job, right? They're in control. They're supposed to help their constituents, and they're not doing their job, and that they can't just hope that people won't notice.
Well, Brez, one of the reasons why Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing what she's doing, first of all, is she raises a lot of money from smaller donors. And so she doesn't have to worry so much. And also, she's sort of out MAGA-ing the MAGA crowd, right? I mean, she's actually fighting for, her argument would be, and I know her district very well, she's fighting for working class voters in her district. She's fighting for Trump voters who depend on, again, a lot of this health care that has been stripped away, so Republicans can give $1 trillion in tax cuts to the likes of Mark Zuckerberg. So talk about how when one member does it, and does it successfully, and it is very popular in your district when you do this to fight for your constituents over Washington. And also, again, the Epstein files. She's out there on the Epstein files as well. Talk about how this suddenly puts her in a position where other members are looking, going, this is not hurting her at all. In fact, maybe telling the truth about these health care cuts to our constituents might be a good thing for us.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Joe. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, when she made her announcement that she supported, an extension of the Obamacare subsidy, she cited her own kids. Whenever I think she has like a 26-year-old daughter saying her healthcare premiums are going to soar. There was a big story yesterday in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution talking about in Georgia, where Marjorie Taylor Greene's district is, these premiums, the silver Obamacare plans, they're going to soar in prices. Like a family making under $80,000 a year is going to pay a lot more. Now, also remember, there's a huge Senate race in Georgia next year. Mm-hmm. John Ossoff is voting with the Democrats on this, even though he's in a swing state that Trump won. He feels comfortable because he thinks he's on the side of, he's got the right message here. And you're exactly right. Marjorie Taylor Greene she's got the two issues. She's got the Epstein files because Johnson has kept the House out and he won't swear in the new member from Arizona, Adelita Grijalva. They can't get the Epstein discharge petition. They can't get a floor vote on Epstein, releasing the Epstein files. And then second, like this populist issue, Greene's making an appeal to Trump here. Trump is the key to this. And I stay on this, and we've been staying on this. Trump is the key to this because she's making a populist appeal to a populist president and, saying that the Republican leadership is not listening. Mr. President, you got to listen.
And the Republicans and the president have to break on this because talking about these premiums, people are not going to be able to afford them. They can't afford anything right now. Anything at all. They can't afford homes, food, anything because inflation and prices are so high. This will be devastating. Absolutely devastating, and it will be on them. We've got a lot more to get to. Co-founder of Punchbowl News, John Bresnahan, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brez.